Kader. He is the president of Technaf LLC from United States of America and is specialized in identity and access management. He's a subject matter expert in identity and access management and has gathered, analyzing requirements, evaluating the COTs, products, and implementing next generation IDAM systems. He's also specialized in leading projects such as IVR, integrated voice response, CTI, computer telephony integration solutions for call centers, data modeling, and database design, internet-based UI development, and broadcast architecture. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. We would love to hear from you and see your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Faisal Kader. Yeah. Okay, so, I actually moved here in the US after my HSC. I went to school in St. Joseph and then Dhaka College and then moved here, did my undergrad in engineering, from University of Wisconsin, went to Johns Hopkins for my master's in computer science and engineering. And I did my PhD from University of Maryland in cybersecurity. So whatever we learned, I learned and supporting the US government, we try to give something back to our fellow Bangladeshis. So I travel quite a bit, and I went to Dhaka, went to bases, central bank, and different, educational institute, and gave talk on what we have learned. So today my talk will be, focused on what we have been doing here and how we can replicate that model, some of which are being replicated already, how we can do that in an efficient way in Bangladesh so that we can secure the IT infrastructure and also non-IT infrastructure in the cybersecurity space for our motherland and Bangladesh. So again, I'm talking in English because that we have a non-Bengali audience here, but I really appreciate our minister giving such a wonderful speech in Bangla. I wish I could do that. This is a great talent, actually. So my introduction on the agenda would be, I'll talk about the data privacy, the security, and the sovereignty, which is very important for Bangladesh. And also how are we protecting some of the key infrastructure in the US, and I'll just talk about briefly some of the case studies that we have been supporting here, and also some of the challenges and the opportunities in Bangladesh and how we can build the next Bangalore in Bangladesh on the outsourcing side. So again, I had the pleasure to work with another company. It's called Tista Science. And then, I joined Technaf. We both started a pretty critical project for one of the largest financial institute in the world, which is Internal Revenue Service. They actually have about $3.9 trillion of annual revenue, and of the exposure and the privilege that we as fellow Bangladeshis have to support securing that infrastructure. So the message is, if we can do that, if we can secure that infrastructure, we can definitely do the same for the fellow Bangladeshis. And again, I will touch upon some of my exposure in the neighboring country. Actually, I used to go to Bangalore every 3 to 6 months when I was part of General Electric. We built their Jack Welch Technology Center. The CEO, Jack Welch, picked 5 of us to build their offshore development center back in 2000. And we went there, we built from scratch. We went to IIT, hired 20 top-notch engineers for a proof of concept project. And today there are about 927, I believe is the number, engineers are working there. So every time I went there, I used to go to Dhaka and other districts and give talk to give something back. So again, let's dig into the basic concept of the internetwork. So our world, the way the data is being transmitted around the world has become very, very small, actually. And it's no longer that, okay, let's just secure the US and then not secure the rest of the world and think that US is fully secure, right? So the same thing is true for Bangladesh. Bangladesh has a major hub in the South Asia to create a big impact in the IT security infrastructure. So we need to pay attention to our fellow Bangladeshis and their districts and every little corner of the street there, to make sure that any kind of data transmits between that country and rest of the world, it's fully secure. So how do we do that? We do that by introducing this data privacy, right? That's pretty big. The data privacy is, if I may give you a little bit of a background, is that there's a notion called PII, which is called personally identifiable information. So in Bangladesh's term, basically this is, here we have social security number, but there we have NID, national ID in Bangladesh, that uniquely identify a person. So when I go to Bangladesh, I see that national ID is being shared everywhere, right? You walk into any office, okay, can you show me your national ID? Which is okay. And they make a copy, but it's I think, in my opinion, it's a little too open. It should be secured in a little better way, because, if people impersonate the national ID, then, you can be hacked and being exploited with any kind of other information. Also, like the passport information, the date of birth, the biometric information, your fingerprint and all those, these are like PII information that needs to be fully secured, so that, we can protect not only you and also your organization and also the backbone of the country. So we need to make sure that our financial sector, healthcare, and all the other sectors are fully secured. And how do we do that? By introducing the data security here, right? So the basic fundamental security infrastructure is based out of 3 letters, CIA, which is C stands for confidentiality, I is integrity, and A is availability, right? So the data has to be confidential. The data has to be fully authentic. It cannot be updated. So that data integrity has to be there, and the data has to be available with proper security to make sure that you have taken care of the entire CIA methodology for the cybersecurity space. Again, I'm going a little bit higher level, because we have a different variety of audience here. I don't want to go into too much in the technology, but I'll touch upon as much jargon and terminology and the concept as possible, so that you get a good picture of it. So the data sovereignty, this has become a pretty important part, especially with the cloud. We have been building many cloud environment, like a data center around Bangladesh, and also we sometimes, for disaster recovery, we tend to put our failover data server somewhere outside the country, right? Because if there is any kind of national disaster, our system should keep on running. So we intentionally do it in a different country. But the problem is there could be a data ownership issue. Like, okay, if the data resides in somewhere outside your soil, then who is responsible for that particular data source when it comes to having access or having any kind of issues, and so on. So that data sovereignty, there's a lot of work happening these days, even in Bangladesh. So there's a board. I was told that they're looking at this issue very seriously. So that's very important. So again, in this cybersecurity world that we live in, the cyber threat is happening every single day. You know what happened a few years ago in central bank. And also the big organization like Sony, JP Morgan, Staple, eBay, every big companies are vulnerable on any kind of cyber threat. And that actually happened, day in and day out. And without being aware of this, I mean, a lot of different companies, they're being hacked on a regular basis, and they're not advertised because of their credibility. So this is real. This is not something that theoretical anymore. It's, we pretty much face challenge across the board, even in the commercial sector, the government sector, financial, healthcare, you name it. So again, this vulnerability disclosure, I mean, the data is a little dated, but the message is actually, the way our cyber threat is expanding. It is the vulnerability is also expanding with our expansion in the digital world. So we need to be very careful and secure the infrastructure as much as we can. This slide is talking about that cybersecurity is not a technical issue anymore. Because, if you look at this picture, this national critical infrastructure for Bangladesh, any infrastructure for any other countries, it touches everything. IT is a very small piece, by the way. There is this transportation, dam, this defense, government facilities, even food and agriculture, the energy, the nuclear, the chemical, healthcare, public financial services. Everything goes through digital transformation, that goes through any kind of electronic data warehousing, where you store the data. So you need to make sure that you're not only securing the IT sector, you have to secure the entire infrastructure of the country to make sure that we're fully secure. So it's no longer a technology or technical issue. If you look at the comprehensive cybersecurity approach, this is a little technical. I'll try to be as non-technical as possible to make sure everybody understands. If you look at these two different boxes, on the left, it's the server, on the right is the client. So the server, think about this as your data center where you house all your data that you need to secure. And the right-hand side on the application and the clients, where you, the operators or the users, would be going into some website, going into some applications to access the data, right? So when you access the data from the server, you're actually connecting to the server and updating or deleting or removing or reading some critical data, right? So in the cloud, where you're saying when the data is being transformed back and forth between the client and the server, you need to make sure that there's no data interception. There's nobody from outside can come in and access the data and spread this data and expose to non-authorized individuals. So we need to make sure that we have proper security infrastructure set up between your application and the server. So to dig into different boxes, that could probably be set aside for another technical session that, if I get a chance in the future, I'll do that. But because of the time constraint, let me move forward. This one, I'm talking about the approach to cybersecurity. Back in the initial stage of our security measures, we used to think about securing just the internal systems, right? And securing the servers and the applications that I just talked to you about. But there's a major piece in the external world as well. So external and internal, they're both equally important. You need to have proper firewall. You need to have proper forensic analysis in place so that if there's any kind of external threat happens, we can immediately intercept and we can do the remediation. So basically, both external and internal, they're both equally important. And more importantly, if you look at the statistics, we think that when we secure our internal infrastructure, we're fully secured. Apparently, it's not the case because there's a lot of internal threats happening, knowing or unknowingly. So about majority, actually, about 70% or so security vulnerabilities or security penetration happens internally. So we need to also make sure our internal resources are fully trained and equipped to know how to secure their own infrastructure. So the relative cost of cybersecurity is, if you look at this green big portion of the pie. This is the internal threat. So my message here is that not only we should focus on external, we need to also pay attention to our own individual to secure that. Okay, so let me move on to some of the case study. As I said, we fellow Bangladeshis, along with our another great company that I talked to you about, Ahmed Ali is the owner of that company. He's doing really, really well. He first started providing cybersecurity support for this largest organization called Internal Revenue Service. And I was part of that. I had the privilege to work with him. And so we identified their identity and access management requirements so that we can secure all the taxpayers' identity. And also we worked on the data loss prevention, meaning when the data is transmitted between the taxpayers, we made sure that nobody from outside or inside can penetrate to the data. And also we did the forensic analysis for this particular organization. And we are also supporting that organization even today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what we have done and what we can do in Bangladesh. And by the way, Bangladesh has come a long way. I mean, every time I go there, I'm so impressed to see the progress. So some of this topic is nothing new, but I just wanted to refresh some of your existing exposure to make sure that we're doing the right thing in Bangladesh. So basically, identity and access management is nothing but identifying you when you log into your system and make sure that it's only you, not anybody else who claims to be yourself. And also you have the right level of access, the authorization and the authentication, both are taken care of by identity and access management. So basically the role-based access control, that terminology, I'm sure some of you are very familiar with. So not only you will have access, but you'll have the right level of access. Like, if you're a manager, you should have a little different access than the regular user. So you need to have that kind of demarcation pretty well defined. Basically, back in a few years ago, it's only the user ID and the password was your credentialing mechanism. But these days, after all this different vulnerability that happened, we introduced a new paradigm, which is another level of identity and access management strategy, which is a fingerprinting, based or biometric based multi-factor authentication, if you will. Not only you will log in using your user ID password, but there will be an additional piece of information that only you can represent, which is it could be your retina, it could be your fingerprint, it could be your voice, it could be your face, your facial recognition, right? So again, I just wanted to kind of quickly go over some of this. So the basic components of IDAM, which is identity and access management, is the identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability, right? So again, let me dig in a little bit on each one of those. So identification, as I said, is basically to confirm that the subject is you and no one else. Again, their password, there's passphrase, this cryptographic key, the PII and the PIN number, the token, the biometric that I talked about, that could enable your security measure pretty well. Then there are three factors of authentication: something you know, something you have, and something you are. So something you know is basically your user ID, password, and mother's maiden name, city where you lived. And something you have is probably some kind of a token, some kind of badge, as you key into your building or your system. And something that you are is nowhere to be replicated. That is the most important level of authentication, is your fingerprinting or your retina, your voice, and so on. So no one else can replicate your retina, right? Replicate your fingerprinting diagram and whatnot. So basically, this is a very key attributes of your authentication scheme. Anyway, let me quickly, speed up my process, because I like to cover as much as I can but please let me know if I'm going over my time, so I can manage it accordingly. So this is basically a high-level identity and access management lifecycle. So if you look at what it entails, is basically it provides the identity of the user. It provides the provisioning mechanism, how to configure a particular user. It also lets you deprovision when a person leaves your organization. You need to make sure that you deprovision that person. Oftentimes we forget to do that, and guess what? Once the person leaves the company, if they still have access to your intellectual property, then that's a problem, right? That you can have some data leakage if you still lay around some of his credentialing. So you need to make sure that you deprovision that particular person properly. What are some of the relationship between the user and the organization and the IT infrastructure? You need to make sure that that's configured properly. You need to make sure that there's this password management, the role-based access control management, the authentication and the authorization management are well taken care of within your application suite. So that's kind of the full-blown paradigm of identity and access management. The biometric solution, as I told you, it could be physical, it could be behavioral, it could be fingerprinting, it could be your scan of your thumb, your hand, and whatnot, and then it could be your retina, your retina scan. I mean, that uniquely identifies you by looking at your eye retina scanning. So no one can replicate that, right? As I talked to you about. So let me move a little fast. Your facial recognition, that's another key thing that's happening, and it's working out pretty well. So you can have your facial structure. A lot of you use iPhone, and these days you use your Face ID to authenticate to your phone, right? So this is nothing but this technology that I'm talking to you about as a part of identity and access management. That biometric signature, the digital signature, the biometric behavior is also the keystroke. Even your voice. No one else can replicate your voice. So that is another key information to have another way of authenticating yourself. Okay, now let me just move a little faster. Okay, these are all technical stuff that I can bypass. Okay, now let me tell you a little bit about the next case study. So that everything I talked to you so far is about identity and access management, but the next one is the data loss prevention. And that's another big project that we did for the federal government. Again, I cannot disclose anything about the government facility or anything. What I'm saying is the technology that we implemented, which is in the public domain, but I'm not able to disclose anything more on the specific on the federal space that we're doing. So again, the data that I'm sharing, it's pretty secure. I'm not exposing anything, just to make sure that you all understand. So data loss prevention is something that you can lose your data while sending an email, for instance. Let's say I'm sending a very critical email to our minister, Mr. Jabbar, right? That we're talking about some critical IT security infrastructure and how we can implement. Let's say in my email, if the backbone of that data transmission is not secure, then anybody from outside can intercept our conversation and then get all the intellectual property related information that we have been discussing with our leaders. So that is a major problem, right? So that's another thing that we need to make sure that we have this fully implemented in every high profile, or even not high profile, every little organization in Bangladesh that deals with any kind of PII related data transformation, any kind of IP related data transformation, and any kind of important information that you think that would create a major impact if that gets disclosed, right? So we need to make sure that we do that very securely. So in some of the challenges for DLP is basically it could be very complex, because we pick up the phone and sometimes we talk on the phone with our counterpart about some of the information, right? Guess what? There's a very easy way to intercept that phone conversation as well. We text, we do texting. That can also be very easily intercepted. So we need to make sure that data loss prevention environment is fully enabled. If I talk to you about some of the fundamental topics of data loss, is that there are three major phases of deployment at a very high level, which is DIM, DAR, and DUE. DIM is data in motion when the data is transmitted via email. You need to make sure that's secure. The next one is DAR, which is data at rest. When the data is housed in the database, you need to make sure that the database is fully secured. And data in use is when you open up your critical data on your computer, make sure that your computer is secure so that no outside or inside resource can have access to that particular data. Okay, so my last case study is the enterprise forensic and e-discovery for the IRS. So we not only did the data loss prevention and the identity and access management, we also did the forensic analysis. What it is basically, if there's any kind of hack, any kind of unfortunate interception happens in the public domain for the taxpayers' database, we implemented this particular technology to make sure that we immediately detect and remediate and stop that from happening or penetrating. So that's the tool we used. It's called Encase, which is a third-party tool. What it does is it does user behavior analytics, if you will. I'm talking about data science a little bit here. It's basically, we look at your usage pattern. So the user behavior, like, if you look at my usage, so I usually use my computer heavily from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening. So we have a profile for myself, right? All of a sudden you see that I am using a system at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it immediately, that user behavior analytics tool detects that, I might be doing something anomalously. I might be doing something out of ordinary. So we pay attention to my usage. So if any case somebody impersonate me in the middle of the night and use my system, then that's a problem. So that's how this tool kind of detects all the interception or impersonation of any other user. So again, this is technical jargon. Let's not go over that. But the point is, you have there's this examiner who is examining all our user behavior in the IT infrastructure to make sure that everybody is secured and nobody is impersonating you and using your system irregularly or in an out of ordinary fashion, so that you can detect immediately. So this is basically the forensic analysis. And what I wanted to finish up in the next 2 minutes is that some of the challenges that I saw in Bangladesh is that the threats, the vulnerabilities, and the issues these days, we're paying big attention, but in the past, several years, we focused on functionality for any kind of organization more than the security. So I'm thrilled to see that the security is being looked at very seriously. And if you think about the previous event, like the central bank hack, the ATM compromises that's happening day in and day out, land fraud. I'm so happy to hear that this land management infrastructure is being well designed and implemented so that there's no land fraud in Bangladesh. But still, we need to make sure that all the use cases are properly utilized. The SIM card verification, that is some project that we had the privilege to do. The SIM re-registration, where we did the verification of the fingerprinting customers going into the election commissioner's database to verify. So that's a perfect example of identity and access management. And also as a future business for Bangladesh infrastructure, we need to make sure that the data is not lost. And also we need to make sure that we have proper forensic analysis done. So again, in a nutshell, there's a lot of opportunities for mitigation. There's a lot of things. And we as fellow Bangladeshis, we're really enthusiastic to give something back to our fellow Bangladeshis and also our country. So we proposed building a Bangladeshi Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, and I've been working with a great engineering organization called ABIA, American Association of Bangladeshi Engineers and Architects. And we are proposing to build a Cybersecurity Center of Excellence in Bangladesh. The reason being that we need to train the local talents. And if anything happens, again, like central bank, we should have a way to talk to this Center of Excellence and get immediate assistance to mitigate some of those. Again, the data center in Bangladesh, I don't think it's world's fifth, but it could be world's second or third by now. The data is little dated. So the data center is booming there. So we all should come forward to help them out and build the infrastructure. The call center is another big thing that we should promote. And I've been seeing, if you look at this outsourcing revenue, India is still becoming, it's being the largest, and we being next to that, and we should come forward, and this bar should be next to India or even better than India, hopefully in the next few years, the way we're making progress. So basically, I think we do have the talent. We have the talent. We Bangladeshis have the skill set. We Bangladeshis have the competitive price advantage. Our price is much lower than our neighboring countries. Then why not build the next Bangalore in Bangladesh? There's no reason why we cannot build the biggest outsourcing hub in Bangladesh. With that, I like to conclude my talk, and thank you so much, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to talk. And again, it's my privilege, and have a great day. Have a great conference. Thank you so much.